The actions of the DAR and the KKK changed the way we see racism in America today. The DAR, or Daughters of the American Revolution, and the Ku Klux Klan, a hate group that persecuted African Americans, had a great effect on America.
Persecution taught America that we need to be more acceptant of others and their differences. These events taught America a lesson, one that we are still struggling to understand in today's world.
The KKK's terrible acts and the DAR's mistakes, although they caused a lot of tragedy, actually helped America to see how bad things could be if we hurt others because they are different than what was looked at as the normal standard.
The National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, was founded on October 11, 1890. The DAR started out as a little group with little money. The group's founders were Mary Disha, Mary S. Lockwood, Ellen Molesworth, and Eugenia Washington. The group was founded after the group SAR, or Sons of the American Revolution, banned women from the group in April 30th, 1890. Since its founding in 1890, the DAR has admitted more than 950,000 members all across America. The DAR only allow women who have a direct descendant who fought in the Revolutionary War to join the group. The group was known for not allowing Marian Anderson and Hazel Scott from performing at the Constitutional Hall. They also did not allow a woman named Lena Ferguson, who could prove she was a direct descendant of a soldier, to join their group. Later, Marian Anderson got to sing at the Lincoln Memorial, where hundreds of thousands came to hear her sing. The group's actions have affected the decisions and actions of others, such as Eleanor Roosevelt, who resigned from the DAR with a letter saying, "You have set an example which seems to be unfortunate, and I feel obliged to send into you my resignation. You had an opportunity to lead in an enlightened way, and it seems to me that your organization has failed." Marian Anderson had been a good friend of Eleanor, so when the DAR did not allow Mary to sing, this was Eleanor's response. In her letter, Eleanor Roosevelt says things like, "I am afraid that I have never been a very useful member of the Daughters of the American Revolution." She also says, "However, I am in complete disagreement with the attitude taken in refusing the Constitutional Hall to a great artist." You can feel Eleanor's pain and affection that she feels towards Marian Anderson and how she disagrees with the things that the DAR had been doing. The DAR also had problems with Hazel Scott and Lena Ferguson. Hazel was a renowned pianist who wasn't allowed to perform in the Constitutional Hall because of the color of her skin. This caused protests from people who wanted to see her perform. These actions didn't do much, and Hazel never got to perform at the Constitutional Hall. Lena Ferguson was a normal woman who wanted to join her local DAR, but wasn't allowed to do because of the color of her skin. Later, she proved that she was a direct descendant of a soldier of the American Revolution, but was still denied access. Lena, with a lot of hard work, was finally allowed access and was a member until her death. In 1942, the DAR allowed Marian Anderson to perform in front of an integrated audience. One of Marian's conditions was that the DAR would have to allow racially mixed audiences and colored performers in the future. On March 14, 1953, Marian performed in front of an integrated audience. This was a triumph since she had broken the color barrier. They didn't really follow through on their promise later, as they denied the stage to Hazel Scott, a renowned pianist. The DAR has changed and grown. They now have thousands of members of all different races. But we can't forget what they have done and how they affected history, because if we do, we can make the same mistakes in today's world. So we learn from our mistakes and forgive, but we shouldn't ever forget.
In 1865, 6 ex-Confederate soldiers, Frank McCord, John Lester, J. Calvin Jones, Richard Reed, James Crow, and John Kennedy decided to start a social club in Pulaski, Tennessee. They were displeased that they had lost the war. They strongly disliked the fact that African Americans would no longer be trapped into slavery. They decided that they would not stand for this and began having meetings and gaining members. The KKK was formed right after the Civil War in 1865. The Civil War was between 1861 and 1865, about 4 years. It was the North against the South. The North felt that slavery was wrong and wanted to end it, but the South depended on their slaves for money and labor. The South felt that they should have the right to legally own slaves. On April 12, 1861, the war began. They fought until April 9, 1865, almost 4 years later. The North won and the South was forced to give up slavery. The small little club that started in Tennessee sparked America and soon claimed to have 15% of America's eligible population. They had many people on their side, and at the time, many government officials were part of this group also. It was no longer one little club, but hundreds of clans, all for the sole purpose of targeting African Americans, Catholics, and Jews. They were all over the country, and just like that, a small social club turned into one of the biggest racist groups in America. They quickly developed into a very violent group. In 1915, D.W. Griffith released the movie The Birth of a Nation. It caused many others to join the Klan and sparked a more violent group. They took big crosses and lit them on fire. They would then set off dynamite to attract attention. They did this to spark a fear in people and make them realize that they were serious. These cross burnings led to the tarring and feathering of many citizens of the country. People were very scared, and that's exactly what the Ku Klux Klan wanted. As time went on, people became less scared and more angry. On one occasion, a group of brave men and women, known as the Freedom Riders, decided to have a peaceful protest. They trained for the rude comments and physical abuse they would receive. On May 4, 1961, the Ku Klux Klan attacked a bus of 13 people immediately when they rolled into Alabama. They slashed the bus's tires. They then surrounded and firebombed it, with the riders still inside. The riders ran off the bus, but only to be beaten by the Klan. There were also many lynchings of African American slaves. Some KKK members were tried for the murders, but not all were caught. Many people who suffered from the terrible acts of the KKK never got full justice and most likely never will. After many terrible acts of the KKK, such as lynchings, tarring and feathering, and brutal beatings, the government realized that what they were doing was completely wrong and inhumane. The police began arresting Klan members who were known for their terrible acts. This caused the Klan to decrease in numbers because people became scared that they might be arrested also. Only those who were very loyal to the Klan remained. As time went on, their numbers kept a steady decrease. They continued to burn crosses, and some Klans still do today. Although we think of the Klan as a terrible group who caused so much harm, they actually, in a way, helped us to see how terrible life could be if we persecute those who we consider different than us. They showed us how treating others badly is wrong. We cannot judge people based off of their race, political, or religious views. Underneath, we are all the same. We are all human and we all have feelings, and we need to respect the feelings of others, whether we agree with them or not. Through studying these groups, we have realized that racism is still an issue today.
But they have taught us to strive for a better world and to learn from our mistakes as Americans.
And to grow to be better in the future.